I'm Suzanne. I am a writer, an author, and a teacher.
And I am Mychal. I am a sommelier tarot card reader and former ballerina.
Welcome to All the Woo.
Today's episode is R for
Reincarnation.
We do want to let you know, just a warning, this is going to be a slightly longer episode as it is a very special episode.
It's juicy. As always, this is a safe space where you can just believe what you want, think what you want, and hopefully we'll just entertain you. We are talking from our own experiences and our own knowledge, and you are welcome to join us.
So our wine pairing today is actually going to be a fun wine. It is a Ripasso, which I'll tell you really quick, but it's Tenuta Santa Maria Ripasso Valpolicella Superiore. It's a little bit of a mouthful. This is an Italian wine, in case you couldn't tell.
In case the Italian confused you.
Yes. So it's an Italian wine, and the reason why I'm pairing this with Reincarnation is because you take...
They reincarnate the grapes.
They kind of pretty much do. So they use grapes from another wine called Amarone, which are already kind of raisined, and then they press the juice out of it for that wine. Then they take those leftover grape bodies.
The grape corpses.
Yes. And then they take fresh juice for Valpolicella and pass it over. That's what Ripasso stands for, to pass over those other grape skins in order to take some of the tasting sweetness kind of ripe qualities that are in there.
Okay.
And so...
It's very efficient.
It is. I mean, recycle, reduce, reuse.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. And then you're able to have a wine similar to Amarone, which is normally very expensive, I'll tell you that, and with the same similar flavor profile without it being quite as expensive. It's kind of a good, a value wine for that reason. I highly recommend. And it's a red wine, in case I did not make that very clear.
Valpolicella.
Yes.
So reincarnation is, by definition, what it sounds like. Reincarnated. So living again. And it seems redundant to ask why this is woo.
But essentially not. I mean, if you have been a natural believer in the fact that you've lived many lifetimes before, not everybody believes that. There's many people that just feel like, YOLO.
Yeah.
This is your one and only lifetime to really go out and live your best life. Okay, definitely, seize the day, but at the same time, there's also a chance that you've probably done this before. So, Suzanne, reincarnation. This is kind of a big topic. Where to start?
So for me, this has always been the blockade to embracing my full woo-ness.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret, audience members. This is something that I just recently found out. I did not know this before. I will tell you that.
Well, most people don't, because when you look at what I have written over the past 20-something years, and you are like ancient Egypt, ancient Atlantis, ancient Jerusalem, ancient Babylon, obviously this woman believes in reincarnation.
Not just ancient, that people are time traveling from the future back to the past as well. But yes, go on.
So this has been a topic because of my background, conservative Christian background, and that it is part of a Protestant ethic, at least, that there is only one life.
Yeah, I agree. Roman Catholic, it's the same. It's not really a thing.
You at least get purgatory to make some decisions. We're just one and done. And if you didn't do it right, or you're not part of, depending on which sect you're talking about or which denomination, you could just roast for eternity.
Yeah.
So that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
But in my life, I have also, because I have traveled to places that are very historical, I grew up in Europe, I did lots of traveling in the Middle East, I have always met people who have known me before.
True. I am going to ask you a very personal question right now.
This should be exciting.
Yeah. So for myself, I'm going to give you the example. When I visited New Orleans for the very first time, had this feeling. It was the strangest thing. It was the first place that I had ever visited for the first time that I felt like I had missed it. That was my feeling of not like, oh, yay, this is great, this is cool. It was like, man, I'm here and it's like I've been here before and I missed being here. Have you ever experienced that?
That is such a difficult question to respond to because, no, just because that is kind of the experience of writing for me.
Okay.
Is writing about places that, I mean, I have visited most of the places, not Babylon, mind you, in current times that I write about.
Mm-hmm.
I think that really informs the flavors of the stories. But when I am writing about them, when you're writing about ancient Minoa, which is my Atlantis, it's very different than going to Greek Orthodox Santorini.
True.
So I feel the longing and the missing of the place that was, which is one of the reasons why it's so easy for me to write it, because I'm just watching a movie of being there.
So what was the catalyst for you having a change of mind on this topic?
I have been, on this journey of trying to figure out my next iteration of self and coming to, have been on a huge healing arc and a very distinct transformation arc and rewriting and reevaluating everything I've ever believed. And one morning I truly just woke up, and this is how my mornings often start, is there was just a statement in my head of, yeah, past lives. Absolutely. I've lived them.
Was that when you told me, or?
Probably pretty close.
Okay.
I want to say it was on a Tuesday.
I like that you know the day of the week that it happened. I mean, it's a notable thing to, all of a sudden become aware of, yes.
But I think my husband wasn't home, so I couldn't say anything until I had told him first.
Fair.
So, and also to give myself time to digest a huge life change decision for me, which wasn't a decision so much as just a knowing. Like, now that I was at a point where it wasn't going to make me fearful about my faith or any component of my eternal safety or anything like that, that I could accept that the universe as the expanding energetic thing,
right,
was big enough for me to hold those ideas. And I have been aware this entire time, entire continents base their religion on reincarnation. I mean, it is in Judaism. It is. I mean, that was one of the really big differences between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. So it has been kind of an argument, and I have stood on the other side. But this was a kind of realization, and it wasn't an argument anymore. It was just a knowing. And then over the course of however many months it's been, I will just kind of have these moments of realization of conversations I've had now, how it fits into this overall pattern.
What do you mean by that?
So I mentioned I've had people who have truly shown up at book signings, met me in other places, and been like, we've known each other before.
Yes.
And so without resisting that anymore, because I have apparently spent a tremendous amount of energy resisting it, it just allows the experience, the memory, the knowing to just kind of slide into place with no big fuss.
So my personal experience with this, of why I was so unaware of all of this previously, it was a shock to me when Suzanne told me this realization. I was like, really? You didn't? Oh, I did not know that you were not, on board with that idea already before.
Again, going back to what I've written.
Yes, because going back to our meet cute, they gave me one of Suzanne's books that is based in ancient Egypt, which totally on brand
Yep.
for me. I immediately went home and opened up the book and started to read. And there was so many, well, a couple different points. One, how she's able to describe and fill in the things that, historically we don't really know about in order to make it fleshed out, which Suzanne would argue just means that she's a good writer, and she is. There's that. I'm not denying that at all.
No, but the points that you're talking about are things that aren't in research. I just filled in the blanks.
Right. Then beyond that, I think that there was a lot of links in her book that I don't want to take over ownership in this, but there was like a lot of...
Are you saying that you're my hero in the book?
I'm not necessarily saying that I am your hero in the book, but I am going to say that there was a lot of similarities between your hero in the book and myself, some having to do with like nicknames and all of that, and then come to find out later that in one of the later editions of this book that you have a character that actually has my name, which is unusual because it's not spelled the traditional way, like Mychal, like a boy, but it's spelled Mychal. Your book does spell it different than that, but that spelling comes from King David's first wife.
Mychal.
Yes, and so that is one of the characters in your book. I'm like, it's fairly unusual to run across not only other people that have my name.
And I believe when you first introduced yourself, I was like, oh, like David's first wife. And you did a double take and you were like, yeah.
Exactly. Nobody has ever known that before. I always have to tell people because people always want to ask, oh, are you named after a boy? Did your parents want a boy? Are you sure your name's not Michelle? Like all of those kinds of questions. And yes, it was super intentional that I received my name. And no, they were not going for a boy. I'm just going to answer all those questions now. Yeah, so there was all of that I was like, there's a lot of interesting
correspondences.
Yes, that just for me, I was like, hey, there's something here because I'm already a reincarnation believer by far to an extreme. I've had reincarnation reports done, which we'll talk about here in a second, that I've already had that done. So for me, in my mind, I'm sure that Suzanne and I have had lifetimes in the past that we have shared together.
And I was completely on board with believing that from the beginning, even though I was not entirely sure that I believed in the whole concept overall.
And I don't even know that I necessarily said that outright.
No, I don't think so. But it was just, I think my husband knew it.
And the other funny part, too, is that we just somehow both operated in this. We just are not talking about it, but I just was under the assumption of, so that it was really I was so taken aback by the fact, I'm like, wow, I feel like I don't know you at all. Because this is news to me. But yes, so I'm too am very interested to hear about, just as you all out there are hearing about this process that Suzanne has kind of come to, and I think even still going through, I would imagine at this point, of really kind of exploring that idea.
And so likening this to other experience I've had, when you remove the resistance and just allow things to flow, and it's no longer a fear in some way, then I hadn't done hypnotism per se, but I had done a very intense personal therapy, if you will.
Yes.
And part of that was really trying to think back to where, your bloodline begins, to pick up ancestral karma or wounds or however you want to phrase it. And the concept of emotional fractals and the concept that I have in the book of people just being in other people's bodies. That didn't sound right.
People existing. You're going to have to read the books. This is going to be get the book. You'll understand exactly what she's talking about.
It's hinged on my character stepping into someone else's skin and her life, because in ancient cultures, for the most part, they were so tightly knit and everybody knew everybody and knew their family and knew where they came from and knew the village they were from and all of that kind of stuff.
It would be hard to be a stranger stepping in.
And especially if you were a stranger who had some missing links in terms of understanding the culture, the language, or anything like that, you'd just be dead. So it'd be a very short book.
True. It was a good answer to a lot of those things, that's for sure.
And was absolutely the reasoning I went through as I was coming up with the concept. Anyway, so in that, I had some very intense emotional memory kinds of things that could be epigenetic memories or what have you. And so by the time that magical Tuesday came that I woke up, it was just like, yes, I've lived these lives. Even then, it wasn't exactly specific as you, Suzanne, as much as you, the memory of whoever you've been, of whatever bloodline, of all of those, like the mechanics weren't important anymore.
Right.
And I think the whole time we've known each other, I have believed, I just haven't applied it to me. And so it's been a case of I have had this offered to me, but I hadn't received it yet. And so I feel like on that Tuesday, I received it. I don't know how. I can't figure it. I can't make all of the pieces fit together, but I believe that I have had more than one life.
So what you're saying that still it wasn't a no, but it for a while wasn't a yes until that point.
Yeah, it was just sort of, the piece of pie that they put on the table. And you're like, I want dessert, but I'm not sure if I want this dessert. I'm not sure if I'm ready for it now. I was ready.
Like, can you order the dessert? And then maybe I can have a bite and see if I want to have more of it.
Yeah. If we keep talking like this, I'm going to get hungry.
Probably. We have marshmallows.
This whole podcast is run on wine and marshmallows.
And marshmallows.
Kosher ones.
Yes, it's true. The diet of champions.
There you go. So, Mychal, you have had so many, not only experiences, memories, but you have gone back and walked through your lives.
Yeah, I've had...
Have you seen me?
I mean, you didn't look like you. You didn't look like you. I've had a couple different ways. There's so many different ways that you can access. Like if you're interested in getting past life readings and that kind of thing, there's so many different ways that you can do this.
And there's also fascinating ways that you can look into your astrological chart and see past lives that you have lived. And that was probably around the same time kind of convincing me that I wouldn't have these particular placements, especially 8th house, 12th house things, which if you aren't aware in astrology, 8th house is kind of the house of mystery and death, and the 12th house is the house of the subconscious and or confinement. So those kinds of placements are often indicators of a robust past life.
Yes. Speaking of which, not to tell you too much about my own astrology chart, I have 3 biggins in my 12th house, which is all about past lives, and it actually says a lot. I have the sun, which is a pretty big player. And then the other two of the largest planets in our solar system, Jupiter and Saturn, both in my 12th house. So, yes. Okay, so all the different ways that I've accessed past lives that I have encountered. One has been that I've gotten a little bit, through having astrology readings done. The other is that I have actually gotten Edgar Cayce styled readings, which He's known as the sleeping prophet.
Yes, Edgar Cayce was about 120 years ago or something.
Somewhere around there.
And he would fall asleep and then he would channel. And so many of the things that he said about the 20th century came true.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And he would give people medical advice that would work out. He'd be able to tell you what was wrong with it. And so...
and he wasn't an educated man, and he wasn't a
Yeah.
rich man. He wasn't any of the things that you would think somebody had an agenda to do this. He was just apparently a really open vessel.
That's true. We should probably do an episode on him. He's definitely very woo. So the means, there are people who do that style of reading today, which is where you have somebody who is basically kind of falling in that state between a deep sleep and a light sleep, and they're accessing they're able to come out of their body and access this information. And you can get these kind of readings to address past lives, for healing, like health reports. You can get all kinds of stuff done, just like astrology. Oh, just think of all the different things you can do and all the different questions that you can ask. But I've had a number of reports done that way, either that it was just a reading for myself in a past life, or whether or not I wanted to know between myself and somebody else.
Another reading you, gentle listener, might not have known was available.
Yes, and I'm going to tell you right now that Suzanne and I are getting one of those.
We're very excited.
We're waiting on it.
And also a little bit trepidatious.
It'll be entertaining at the very least.
And we're going to bring it to you live.
Yeah. So we'll get into that. You can have all kinds of readings. Anyway, so I've had a number of those kinds of readings done. I've even had hypnosis. So there is a certain kind of style of hypnosis that can be done that can bring you into such a deep state that you can access past lifetimes and the in-between times of your lifetimes.
The waiting room.
Yeah, the waiting room area. And I've also had past life recall from a voodoo priestess in New Orleans as well. I've had...
Mychal goes big.
I go big. Go big or go home. But
whichever home that might be from, whatever lifetime, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I found all of these they're all very educational in the fact that I've gained information on what I've done well and what understandings that I, learned in those lifetimes that I kind of naturally bring with me in this lifetime. I also... What?
I just had a real-time realization.
Oh.
Keep going.
Okay. All right.
I'll still be here.
All right. So keeping in mind that, now I forgot where I was. Oh, what I had understandings of previously, but also what I didn't do so well. Because not every single lifetime was I super stellar. I've had certain lifetimes where I'm like, man, that was a super cool lifetime. And I'm pretty cool. And then I have other ones where I'm like, eek, not my best self. And that, might get a little bit of a talking to in the readings where if there's comments, they're like, they had, potential to be able to do more, but they did not. And I was like, yeah, I can see that. Thanks for pointing that out. All right.
Do I still have to pay you? Yeah.
Yes. But then some of the coolest for me was the one that was done via hypnosis, because then I have an actual real memory about this, which I have alluded to and talked a little bit about with the Egyptian episode that we did, that I really could see a space that when I went to go visit that land again, that it was a real, beyond deja vu. It was no, this is I walked into a room not even knowing, this is the space.
Which is really convenient in Egypt because the buildings are thousands and thousands of years old. And so you really can be walking the space that somebody walked in,
Yes.
in the 1500s.
Yeah. And in that lifetime,
BCE.
Yeah. That particular lifetime, they fast forward you to the end of the lifetime on how you passed and how you transitioned over. And so I could see where I was, and I even visited unknowingly. I could see, I'm like, no, this is the space. And this is exactly the kind of plants that were here and where I was, which really kind of solidified everything that I had encountered in that hypnosis. It was really kind of crazy,
Wow.
honestly. So, I mean, this episode would have to be so much longer for me to get into any one of those lifetimes to really kind of explain it. But I mean, I've been everything that you can imagine from, I mean, for me, the most awesome lifetime was being basically not a shaman, but a shaman-like person in a tribe where I was blind and I could speak to my spirit guides and I helped save people's lives and all that kind of thing, which was super cool.
Super cool.
To just not living up to my full potential, breaking people's hearts, being irresponsible with my interactions with people.
Sounds like my 20s.
Yeah, I mean, you're just like, yeah, that wasn't a super awesome way to be, and everything in between. So, I mean,
So you're saying you've 20,000 years old or something.
I don't even know, but I still want to know more of my past lifetimes. I'm still like super intrigued and always want to know whether or not it's good or bad, because either way, there was a lesson. Anytime I've ever had one of these kinds of reports or done the hypnotism, it's asked what was the purpose of that life. And it's always been able to be summed up in a very particular way. This life was all about either being receptive or just all about being of service or all about so there was so many different things to be garnered from that, and knowing that there's a purpose for everything.
All right.
Are you ready to share
my
your
revelation?
Yes.
That was really it. That I never saw the point of remembering a past life because it was like it's in the past. So unless it has some application now, so if I ever need to know something from a past life and I have to say that in all the people who I have heard talk about past lives or visiting the Akashic records or any of that kind of stuff, I truly have just sat there and gone, so writing. That's what writing is for me.
Yeah. Suzanne has been doing that this entire time and just realized that that's what exactly she has been doing.
I thought it was my imagination, but apparently not entirely. But my realization was, as we're sitting here, that if these things are coming up now, that whatever knowledge I am gaining, whatever lesson is there to take, I wouldn't be remembering or I wouldn't be coming into peace with conversations I've had in the past, whatever, if there wasn't going to be some kind of application now.
Yeah, if it wasn't relevant, it wouldn't. And that's also one of the things that if you go and get one of these kinds of reports as well, that is actually what is requested. The most relevant lifetime that is applicable to you in this moment. Because realistically, you've lived hundreds, if not thousands of lifetimes. And I mean, there's just so many to choose from. It's never going to be like a random thing. It's always going to be something that you're supposed to hear now for a particular reason.
All right. Well, gentle listener, if you were like, ooh, I want to know what my past lives are, go to somebody in person and somebody who has a reputation of doing it for a while.
Yes, definitely do your research on this. Don't just go to some random tarot card reader somewhere asking this, because they may not be able to have that ability or have been looking at doing something like that.
And you also will be opened up in a way, so you want to be in a space where you're protected.
Yes. So going along with your intention and all of that, if this is something that you're interested in, really make that intention that you want to find somebody who can do a reading of this kind that would specialize in this kind of reading. And then ask that that person be in highest integrity and be able to give you the information that you need to know. I always ask that of any kind of reading that I get, whether it's past life or anything like that, that before I step into the reading, I always kind of talk to my own spiritual team and being like, I just want to know the information. Let them be able to tell me what it is that I need to know at this time.
And also, if it doesn't happen for you for a while, just know you don't need it.
Yeah,
Not yet.
it'll come to you when you need to know. So on that note, join us next time on All the Woo for
Stones, which is not being stoned. It's actually
rock
rocks.
stones. Yeah. On next time on All the Woo.